Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hi, everyone out there. Welcome to this episode of I Have Something to Say. I'm very excited to have as our guest Mark Holman. He's a VP of Corporate Social Responsibility at Resilience Building Leader Program, and it's awesome that, we were introduced by a mutual friend because talk about adversity, right, Mark? We've been
Absolutely.
faced with a lot of adversity in this last year, and really for a long time, especially underserved and underrepresented communities have to deal a lot with building resiliency, but we don't have access to the proper resources many times to do so. And so, your organization really recognizes that, right? That in the nonprofit space, just everywhere, really, at any level, whether it's corporate, government, nonprofit, grassroots community,
Mhm.
teamwork and also building muscle to do the work can be really challenging, especially then when it's compounded by forces of nature that we have no control over, like the COVID pandemic. And so
Mhm.
your organization really, that's what you're focused on, right? Is building leaders that are able to build resilient teams that can really do work that transforms, society, and that accomplishes whatever mission they're set out to achieve, right? So talk to
Right.
me a little bit about how the program developed and your core values and why this program was developed.
Yeah, great. And thank you so much. I appreciate being here. This is an amazing opportunity. I've listened to several of your podcasts, and I just love the candor, the honesty, the straightforward that is involved in each one. So thank you so much for what you do. I really do appreciate it.
Oh,
Um,
you're welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited about what you have to share with us today.
yeah, I mean, the Resilience Building Leader Program, it was actually the idea and concept from our CEO and founder, Dr. Gene Coughlin. And one of the things that he retired from the Marine Corps after 20 years, and he went to work in private sector. And one of the things that he noticed is that he was working with organizations, working with companies, working with teams as a project manager, program manager, and so on. And and so he came to this as he was going through also gaining his education, his undergrad, his grad degree, and then going for his PhD. He decided to do his dissertation and research in collective resilience, right? And what was interesting is that, and first of all, I'll just let you know for the record, Dr. Gene and I, we go back 35 years. Okay. I've
Okay.
I've known him a long time. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And, and, and one of the things is that he and I met at a certain event, and we were sitting there talking, and he was completing his dissertation, and he sat down with me and says, I have this idea I want to discuss with you. And he started talking to me about it. He says, this is where I think I need to go. And he was at a crossroads where he could have gone to get another job at another Fortune 200 company, or he could take what he had learned and what he knew deep in his soul and his heart, that the way organizations succeed is building collectively resilient teams. They become learning organizations because I think everyone could identify who's listening. You've been in an organization where organizational change is inevitable, right?
Hmm.
My grandmother used to tell me when I was little, because I'd get stubborn at times, she would say to me, she said, let me tell you something, boy, you better figure out how to evolve. I said, what? She goes, evolve. I go, what is evolve? She goes, well, you better figure out how to evolve or you're going to dissolve. Because if you can't change with the times and grow and learn, you're going to become obsolete. And she
Right.
used to stress this to me. And so learning is constant. But in nations, when organizational change comes, if you're not building collectively resilient teams, what happens is that people start getting stressed. So every organization goes through change, whether it's a for-profit, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's government, it doesn't really matter. You find this. And so he said to me, he goes, I have a decision. And I looked at him square in the eye, knowing him for 35 years. And I said, Gene, this is what's needed. This is what's needed. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
just spent 9 years in the private sector after I retired as a
Mm-hmm.
project program and operations manager. And what I
Mm-hmm.
saw is that people have a lot of certifications out there. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with these, Sammy, and you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
whether it's PMP or SHRM or Agile or Scrum or all these things. But those are about processes, and they're good. They're important, very important. But when it comes to the truth is those are processes. But at the end of the day, when you go through organizational change, you're going to have people, human beings who work for you,
Yeah.
unless you're going to go be in charge of machines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you have to learn to build collectively resilient teams. You have to know how to create a positive climate. You need to how do we develop cohesion among the team? How do we learn to provide purpose to employees? And it was interesting because as we talked, he and I said, it's always amazing to me. Forbes magazine puts out the top 10 reasons people leave an organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is every year I've looked at that money, I don't make enough money has only made it into the top 10 3 times, and it was number 10. The rest of the
Mm-hmm.
time, it's things that leaders have full control over. I don't feel value. I don't understand my purpose here. I don't feel that I'm learning anything and growing. Basic things like that, that quite frankly, really, if you think about it, being decent to people doesn't cost you a dime, right?
Yeah.
Giving people a pathway to be successful does not cost you a dime.
Right.
And and I will tell you that it's funny because based on my initial background and growth, I was in the Marine Corps for 28 years. And anybody who served in the military or been with an organization where you get together and you have to solve something, I think you figure out in about 48 hours is a time frame that you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to make it through this by yourself. You
Mm.
depend on each other. We depend on the team, working as a team, problem solving as a team. We succeed or we fall short as a team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
People used to tell me all the time, we've heard this a million times. There is no I in team, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person in your team that says, yeah, but there's an M and an E and it stands for me, right? Now
Mm.
you kind of know that that person's a solo job and you need to integrate them into a team. So you go about doing that. And so he launched this, and it was funny because he told me when he did his research, there was a lot of research on individual resilience, but it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. What he found was done on children, not adults.
Mm. Mm.
And then what he found, the first phase or group of studies that he could find about collective resilience was after 9/11. So
Mm.
so if you think about that for a moment and just let that sort of sink in a bit, like
Yeah.
nobody was studying collective resilience on what it means to bring people together to work as a unit, as a team, as a group. And we all know that together we can always achieve more versus
Yeah.
individuals trying to scramble around and do a bunch of things. So he felt in his heart this was the right thing. He moved forward. He then stood up and created Resilience Building Leader Program. And this is an actual professional leadership certification that individuals can earn that are going to take them through the basic foundation, depending on what level of leadership they're at. And there's
Mm-hmm.
3 levels, in the certification. There's, your frontline supervisors, and you can probably think back to how you became a frontline supervisor. You were really, really good at what you did, and somebody said,
Mm-hmm.
"Sammy, you're in charge of that because you're the best at doing it." And
Right.
then
And
when
now
it
you have
came,
to, yeah, now you have to coalesce all of these different ca- characters, right?
right,
Into this common vision and purpose. Yeah.
right,
Uh-huh.
and how many people were there giving you training or guidance or tutelage on how do you lead and get the most out of your team? Exactly. You received the same number that I did. It was funny in my earlier years, and of course, my background in the military that was built in. That was built
Yeah.
in, And in the private sector, it's very interesting because you're the best at what you do and you work very hard to be that. They put you in charge, but then really not so much do I get much tutelage or learning or knowledge or instruction or
Yeah.
mentorship, right?
Yeah.
And then, middle manager, because then you become a middle manager. Well, how do you facilitate team learning? Because now
Mhm.
you have 4 or 5 frontline supervisors working for you. Well, I have to facilitate team learning across the board. You know, we have to not be afraid to do knowledge exploitation, current processes. How do we make those better? That's the best we can do. And then
Mhm.
giving people a voice, creating a psychologically safe environment where people feel free to speak up. They're not going to be humiliated or made to feel embarrassed, but we share ideas. And then ultimately, as a senior leader in the C suite, is you have to support organizational learning and create the right culture in an organization that moves
Mhm.
from top down and is not just words on paper on a cool CEO memo, but we believe
Mhm.
them and we stand
Yeah.
by them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so this is who we are. This is how we came
Mhm.
to be, and I will tell you, it has been amazing. Because where I was at, I resigned from that organization. I was doing some things sort of on my own as a personal vendor. He called me. He says, "Hey, when we meet, I got to talk to you about something." He goes, "Tell me what you're doing." He wanted me to consult on some things, and they said, "You got to be on the team." And when he told me what it's about, I said, "I'm in. This is
I'm
amazing.
in.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And I know that taking care of the community is one of your core values.
Absolutely,
When we met for
absolutely."
the first time, we had a long conversation about disparities, about lack of access,
Hmm.
about edifying the community, about bringing the right resources, and because it's just so hard for a lot of, I mean, there's nonprofits and there's nonprofits. You have the big
Yes.
nonprofits that are part of the mainstream, and they operate just like the corporate sector. So there's not
Hmm.
much difference there, and just in their processes and policies and procedures, and
Hmm.
the who gets it and who doesn't, right?
Absolutely.
But then you have this large group of community leaders. I mean,
Hmm.
people that aren't highlighted, recognized, or tapped into, and that they actually have the solutions to the very problems
Hmm.
that these underserved communities, that are underrepresented or that lack the resources, are experiencing. And so I was just so blown away with your commitment, to that part of the community, right? Understanding
Yeah.
that they're part of the collective, and that
Absolutely.
they're a big part of the collective and have a lot to contribute, and that you've made a concerted effort, not even effort, commitment really, to
Hmm.
have a long-term dedicated um partnership or initiative that caters to sustaining these community members and really supporting them and building resiliency in a collective manner. I think that was just wonderful. Talk to me about how you landed in wanting to give back in this way, and what it really entails.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate the question. At RBLP, we have four of our core values. And the first one is take care of our employees first and foremost, right? The second one is take care of our customers always. And the third of our values is take care of our community along the way. And the last one is learn every day. Well, take care of our community along the way is not just cool words. Remember that meeting I said when he and I sat down and we went through it and he discussed it and said this sounds amazing. I asked him. I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, where is corporate responsibility? Corporate. So he goes, I'm so glad you asked. He pulls out another sheet and he says, here's what we're going to do. He says he worked at nonprofits in the Southern California area. I worked for nonprofits for probably 15 to 20 years. And I will tell you, whether it's the key volunteer, doing the call tree, putting everybody together, whatever, you just got to be there to give back to your community. That's what's important, right? Everybody should give
Hmm.
back something, right? Um, and I said, what are you thinking? He goes, I've learned, he goes, and you might have seen this. nonprofits, when you look at select nonprofits in the United States, they get grants and donations and things like that. The truth is, all of that money they take in, every dime minus like 4 or 5% of that money goes to administrative fees. The rest goes into helping people for which way we're created. That's what
Mhm.
they do. And I've met with so many nonprofits over the last year and a half. And I will tell you, when it comes to a training budget, you really can't squirrel out much. You can't, because every dollar you take away for that, you take away from people who need, and you're
Right.
there to help. So what we said was, we're going to offer free exam prep training, one-on-one coaching, and a certification exam for leaders within nonprofits, whether they're frontline supervisors, middle managers, or senior leaders. And I said, okay, I'm on board with that. He goes, and we need to really get into this. This is not just words on paper. I believe it from the heart. He said, are you on board? I said, you had me at hello. Okay.
Mhm.
So, so we started doing outreach to nonprofits and talking to them, and they all came with the same answer. Yeah, we don't really have the money. We would love to do something like that, but we can't. I
Mhm.
said, here's what we're going to do. We have an RBLP giving back program. What that program does is, everybody who's a frontline, middle manager, or senior leader organization, this is a professional leadership certification. We are a member of the Institute for Credentialing Excellence. They can go through this program. Normally, folks could, the cost would be anywhere between, $2,000 to $3,200 for this certification. We'll cover the cost. We got it. And they said, wait a minute, we haven't been able to do any kind of leadership training because of funds. And I said, I understand. That's why we're here. And we partner with them. And what we do is, Nicole, who is our communications director, she gets the information together. We post about our partnership across all of our social media, and we let everybody know about this nonprofit. We then coordinate with the folks. We have them apply on our site. We assign them an instructor. And by the way, just to let you know about the character and quality of our instructors, they volunteer their own time to coach nonprofit clients.
Wow.
And
That's
every time,
awesome.
and Sandy, every time I go, hey, we just partnered with a new nonprofit. We have about 6 people who want to earn their certification. Who'd like to volunteer? Before I can go to another section on my computer, I already have 8 or 9 people who volunteer their time,
That's
and
wonderful.
and they're willing to jump on board because they know that this is not words on paper. This is
Mhm.
who we are, and we believe it in our very core of who we are.
Yes.
And you're right. There are amazing people in nonprofits who I have worked with and partnered with and had the pleasure of communicating with, that they do amazing work in their communities every single day, and they
Mhm.
help so many people. And I will tell you, it's a crying shame because they just don't have the funds to invest in, like, a professional certification for leadership
Yeah.
development or something like that. And we're here to say, look, we can't do everything, but this is what we do, and we're going to give it to your team when we partner for free. And they're like,
That's a
I can't believe it.
that's fantastic. I gotta tell you, coming from a Latino background, and
Mhm,
I've talked with a lot of peers, right, in
mhm.
leadership, and across all levels, really, but within the Black and Brown communities, and I have to tell you that access to this kind of program in the nonprofit and grassroots community is non-existent, like a certification like this.
Mhm.
And it would bring so much value. I think also that, this word resiliency is something that, in some communities where, there's the levels of disparities and like the inequities are just so, like, that gap is like so humongous.
Right.
um it's almost survival. It's
Yeah.
not even resiliency. It's just like you need to, building that muscle of like facing adversity and just trying to make it on the other end has a
Mhm.
lot to do with just staying afloat. And so
Yeah.
to have the necessary tools to be able to not only build collective resilient teams, and
Hmm.
really bring together the strengths of your team. What does that look like? Just could you give us an idea of, I mean, not the whole course, obviously, now because
Right,
it's like a
right.
whole program, but what are some of the general tenets or key areas of focus that you really take a deep dive into to really build because it's capacity building, right?
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
in these leaders. So what are those areas of focus that the program overall takes a deep dive into?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. First, you have your frontline supervisors, right? So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we provide three levels of certification. The first one is a resilience building leader professional, which are for frontline supervisors. And the focus is 3 sessions that they would do online on our site. They would go through it, and then they would meet one on one for 1 hour every week to go through that lesson with their certification instructor. And this is where the certification instructor is coaching them, guiding them, checking for understanding on content. And then you have these really good leadership discussions.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, I have myself have done a lot of coaching, and I will tell you, it is amazing when you have someone getting an RBLP. I remember those. Hey, you're the best at what you do. You're now in charge, and they
Yeah.
they ask a lot of questions, right? Like, well, I'm dealing with this. How would this fit in? And I said, okay, what would you think you should do? And they say, well, I think this. I said, okay, here's some ideas you might want to consider. Because
Hmm.
why? I've been that frontline supervisor and I've
Yeah.
had to do those, right? So,
Yeah.
you're talking about over 38 years of leadership, that,
Yeah.
that I've done. So somebody else who could mentor and provide that. And there's 3 lessons that they do to earn that certification. The first one is create a positive climate. And
Okay.
that in that lesson, we talk about how do you analyze team climate, right? So
Hmm.
as a leader, when you first take charge or you first stand up with your team, you want to analyze your team climate. You want to take a look at
Hmm.
that. You want to
Hmm.
earn the trust of your team members, right?
Hmm.
Because you know this, if you can't trust your leader, you're probably
You're
not
not
pushing
going
as hard.
anywhere.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly, right. You want to treat people with respect. This is
Hmm.
seriously one of the leader tasks you go through, and it's
Hmm.
like you remember, you've heard this before, the platinum rule, right? I caught your podcast with
Yes.
Michelle, and I know Michelle very well. Just
Yes.
an amazing
Yes.
human being.
Yeah.
And in the book written by the professor called the platinum rule, right? So it says, well, I use the golden rule. I treat people like I want to be treated. Here's an idea. Try the platinum rule. Treat people how they want to be treated, right?
Right. Hmm.
Because what's good for you is not good for everybody, and you have to adjust as
Yes.
a leader. And then,
Hmm.
enforce accountability. Enforce accountability. That's important because if you're in a workplace where you're there, we're giving your best every day, and your leader is like playing favorites, there's no accountability, it's just kind of a circus, you really lose focus, and it kind of demotivates you. And
Hmm.
then, ironically, the fourth one we get into is talking about encourage people to have fun. I mean, you've
Hmm.
got to have fun when you're at work. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
you feel like that, you're putting on a helmet and you're walking into the salt mines every day, and it's drudgery, you're probably not that excited to go to work. And when you're there, you're just looking for the clock when it's time to go home. So we talk about ideas on how do you encourage your team to have fun, and then of course demonstrate character. You the leader. If you don't have
Mm.
character as a leader, you and I both know, forget it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have no character. I can't believe what you say.
Yeah.
There's no trust. And then manage expectations. It's okay to
Mm.
manage expectations of your team and be honest with them. What are the
Yeah.
expectations? And sometimes we don't get it right every time. And then we get into developing cohesion, and we talk about organizing people to work in teams versus silos. How many times have you
Mm-hmm.
gone to a team and seen people where they sit there and they're all in their cubicle city, right? But they
Yeah.
don't talk to each other. They don't problem solve together. And next thing you know, this is my world.
Yes.
I don't care about anybody else. You got to care about
Mm-hmm.
your team. You got to bring them together. And so we talk about how do you develop cohesion and talking about setbacks. Be there when the going gets tough as a leader. When things
Mm-hmm.
are tough for the team, you can't be, up in the C suite, having a cool iced tea. You need to be down there with the team helping. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the last thing is in that foundation we build is provide purpose.
Mm.
People need to have a purpose. When people have a purpose, it's been proven that they're their desire to perform, their desire to improve, to work through organizational change, to work with each other. They know they have a role here. They're
Yeah.
important. And
Mhm.
and sometimes leaders forget that. It's like, well, you get a paycheck, right? It's
Yeah.
like, well, wait a minute, wait a minute. If it's about a paycheck, I could go anywhere. But when I have a purpose, you've done this before where you've had a leader who you knew your true purpose there and you saw the impact of your purpose, you would go 100 miles for that person. Doesn't matter
Right.
what they needed, what the team needed, you would do that. And then, you want to keep the team informed, right? So you
Mhm.
you got to tell your people. Nobody loves a boss who decides to drop, news, good or bad, at the last minute, right? That
Right.
causes people to panic and stress, right? So this is the core foundation of building collectively resilient teams that we go through.
Mhm.
And then the middle managers would get all of that. And then what they would do is they would go on and talk about facilitating team learning. How do
Mhm.
we do that with a team? How do we analyze team learning? Do we bring things back and say, okay, let's talk about what happened. What went well? What didn't go so well? What could we do
Mhm.
better next time? Okay, let's share ideas and collect those ideas. Have the courage to make a decision as a leader and do some active experimentation and try it differently.
That's
Do you create a
awesome.
psychologically
Yeah.
safe environment? Do people feel safe to even speak up in your group? So when
Yeah.
people feel this way and the way they're led, they are
Mhm.
more resilient. They will hang
Mhm.
in. They will depend on each other. They will share ideas, and the learning
Mhm.
grows. And as people become more knowledgeable, you'll find your team starts adopting the attitude of a shared mental model that we know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we complement each other, and we can persevere through anything. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what comes our way.
Yeah. That I love that. It's almost like creating the one, like a one, but with people, like working as one,
Mhm.
basically. I love that. Absolutely love that. And it's so needed. I'm hearing everything you're saying, and I'm like, OMG, it's like every human being has to do this,
Right.
I mean, like, technically, when we're talking about leadership, everybody's a leader in their own right and in their own space. I mean, clearly, you know, I think the low hanging fruit is looking for those leaders in the community that are already doing the work and that have people that they collaborate and work with. But
Right.
my goodness, I mean, this would really help. I think humanity overall, because it would create more empathy, more sense of purpose, a unified goal, like, or vision, direction, and just letting go of differences to come together to work on the common good, really.
Right. Right.
So this is fantastic. So tell me how you're looking to impact the community, the nonprofit community, through your corporate responsibility initiatives, and how they can reach out to either apply or enroll in this offering, free offering that you have, and what it really entails.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have, first of all, to find us. Here's the easiest thing I tell people to do: go to Google and type in RBLP. The
Okay.
first entry and the whole first page of Google will be links to the Resilience Building Leader Program.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So
RBLP, got it.
RBLP. Okay.
Hmm.
And once you put that in, you hit, yep, go search that. Google will bring back the page of the Resilience Building Leader Program. You'll be, the whole first page will be to that. Click on that link, go to our site. What you will see across the top, you will notice that as you go there, you will see something up there. There's a tab that says Home, Requirements, Apply, Training, Exam, and About. And when you get to About, put your cursor over that, and you'll see something that says Giving Back in the drop down. Click,
Hmm.
click Giving Back. When you go to Giving Back, what you'll notice there is it's going to be pretty obvious, because you're going to see this. And when you do, the one thing you'll notice is you'll see my information where you can contact me, okay, at mark.holman. And this is why I say do this, because it's my email is mark.holman at resiliencebuildingleader.com. So
Right.
it's quite a bit on the backside after the at, but
Yeah,
uh,
we'll put it in the post. Uh-huh.
absolutely awesome. So that's all you have to do. And once you go to reach out to me, just reach out to me and tell me, hey, we're a nonprofit. I heard you on I Have Something to Say podcast,
Hmm.
whatever. I'd like to meet with you and discuss your giving back program. I will reach
Yeah.
back to you immediately. I'll contact you. We'll coordinate best times to meet, and then I'll be more than happy to sit down with you and go through it. And then if everybody's on board, um, and the only thing that people say, well, I have a matter of fact, I have a slide presentation I give, and it's funny, Simi. You'll see it. Ready? The very last
Uh-huh.
slide says, the first bullet says, there is no hook. This is it. Okay. This is what we do. This is what we mean. Because a lot of nonprofits I have met with have mentioned and kind of laugh when I say this on the last slide. They say, I said, I know there's probably you've been approached a lot of times as a nonprofit about, hey, we're going to get you some free software or free fill in the
Hmm.
blank, right? And you get that started in your nonprofit and then like you need more and they go, oh well, we can give you some more at 50% off, and
Right.
then we need more,
Hmm.
and then it's a hook, right? There's a hook to get
Yeah.
in and start
Hmm.
making money. We're not going to ask you for a dime. The only thing I ask is that you review the copy we're going to post on our website about your
Hmm.
nonprofit and our
Hmm.
partnership, and then we're going to post it across our social media so they know about the amazing work you do. And I just ask, when your folks are done, if they be so inclined to provide us a testimonial on their thoughts on the program, that would be great. Okay. Other than
Hmm.
that, I'm not going to ask for any information other than that and money. There's no money involved. This is me giving back means we're willing to put this out there and offer this to nonprofits that we partner with. So by
Yeah.
all means, love to hear from everyone who'd like to take advantage of this opportunity and partner with them and provide some great leadership training and professional development and a professional certification.
I mean, this is like beyond. Thank you so much, Mark. I think it's so needed. I already have like at least five organizations easily,
Great.
that I'm going to, yes, that I'm gonna, send your way, including our very, because we have a nonprofit too. It's
Mhm,
SOS. It's called
mhm,
SOS. So I'll be reaching out to you because I think it would be instrumental, for our executive director to take this. I would love to take it too,
mhm,
and I think it's very needed across uh sectors. I mean, not, in the nonprofit sector, there's so many like causes. You have, for housing, for food deserts, for,
mhm.
financial literacy. I mean, there's just so much that, to be able to tap into this type of certification and muscle building, because it's really muscle building muscle, right? To overcome
Absolutely.
challenges and adverse situations, and be nimble and be able to, survive and thrive actually too. So I really appreciate everything you shared with us today. If you had three key takeaways that you would want to leave us with in terms of the importance of building resilient teams, what would that be?
Yeah, I think the first one I would share is that um, leaders need to commit to learning every day, learning and growing every day. The second one I would say is that a certification like this, like all certifications, is a quantifiable measurement that speaks to your experience, your knowledge that you have acquired to this point in your career. And I think this not only helps you build collectively resilient teams, but it shows others, and it's sort of an accountability that you do to yourself to say, I can be better, I can do better. And I think leaders owe that because you have the most important commodity, which are human beings that you lead each and every day to achieve a goal, a mission, a timeline, an objective, whatever. And that can't be taken lightly.
Mhm.
And the last thing I would say is that uh, It is important that we all give back each day in some way. And at RBLP, this is our way to give back for where we know there is a gap and a need. And we want to be a part of the solution to help build your nonprofit to build collectively resilient teams.
What can I say, Mark? I love you, man. Yeah, this
Hey,
is,
right back
yeah,
at
I
you.
mean, and Michelle knew it. Michelle knew it. She's like, I gotta put those two together because
Yep,
it's gonna be love at first sight. I
absolutely.
thank you for joining us today. Thank you for everything you do. And I really look forward to, engaging with you and really being part of this process and this learning experience. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You're certainly welcome. It is my pleasure to be here. And I appreciate you providing this platform for folks to learn and to share information with each other. Thank you so much for it. I appreciate being here.
Anytime. You're welcome anytime. I'll see you soon, Mark.
All right. Take care, Sammy.
You too. This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.